My name's Jason Goss. I know that you were a ranger and you retired, you said a while ago, a little bit ago.
In 24.
And now you work for the State Department over in Honduras.
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing I don't know necessarily is I would normally call you Ranger, but it sounds like that's not your title. Do you have a different title that I could call you?
No, sir.
So, Mr. Torres?
I'll work.
Okay, thank you. I guess I kind of want to start where Mr. Turner left off, which was, and I'm not going too far in depth with this Hellfire trigger, or this Hellfire system for the gun, but I do kind of want to explain, because I think a lot of people would assume that if you have something on the gun that modifies it, as you said, that allows, you know, for the gun to fire more rounds than each pull of the trigger, right? That's what the Hellfire is supposed to do.
Correct.
Fire more rounds out of the gun faster than even a human could pull the trigger. Make it more like an automatic.
Correct.
Okay, so I think a lot of people would assume that that would be a part of the gun. Do you know what I mean? And so why would it be found in a separate location? Do you know like what the mechanics of that is?
I know you put it behind the trigger, and as long as you press it the correct way, it'll just make the trigger bounce faster and fire like an automatic weapon.
Got it. So it sounds like what you're saying is this is kind of something that, you know, like a scope or like something else that's added to the gun, but not necessarily affixed to it. It can be taken on and off
Yes.
easily. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And that's something that presumably he would have been able to buy at any firearm shop, or I mean, is it illegal or is it legal as far as you know?
It's legal.
It's legal. So, you know, and as you probably know, modifications like that allow people and monsters really like him to do the kind of things that he did. Shoot a lot of rounds in a small amount of time.
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to talk about I want to kind of go to the, I guess 319, 320, and 321. Could I get those put up? 319 through 321? Thank you. Oh, yeah, see the exhibits. Where are the exhibits?
They're right there in the corner.
All of these?
Yeah.
Got it. I could tell you that they're, I'm looking for the pictures of the hole that was in 111 that was going to, I guess, go out. Yep. Thank you. And yeah, Mr. Torres, I have to do that because they have all the exhibits here, but they have them in a PowerPoint here, and I don't have them in a PowerPoint the way that they do. So I'll ask them to help me out on that. So looking at, I think this is 319. We talked about this being the, I guess, the east side of the building. Judge, may I approach?
Yes.
Did you take that photograph?
No, I did not.
Okay. Which is fine. Were you ever outside the building?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm not necessarily going to ask you about that, but you are, I guess, familiar with the east and the west side of the building.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the west side of the building. The northwest side is where the shooter entered. The south side, there's an entrance there, right? And so if you were looking at that picture, we would be looking at this side of the building, the east side, right?
Correct.
That I'm pointing at. Now, there are, on this diagram, this is State's Exhibit 3. I'm sorry, 1. Is it 1 for demonstrative? Okay, just 1. State's Exhibit 1. So these would be 111 and 112, the two classrooms where the shooter entered and was firing weapons. Now, you didn't process 112 at all.
No.
And so 111, if we're looking at this, this would be on the, of these two X's, can you see these two X's?
Yes.
Okay. It would be the one on the right.
Correct.
Okay. Now, the window that we're looking at, you talked about how you saw a defect that appeared to you as if it was fired inside and out. Did you say that? From inside the roof to outside. Not somebody firing from outside of the building into room 111.
Are you talking about the bottom picture?
Yeah, could we go to, I guess, the next picture up in the exhibit? We get a look. I'm sorry, yeah, the next picture down, the next one where I think it's one, and then can we go to the next one? That one. That window and that defect. Did you see the defect inside? Did you?
The bullet hole?
Yeah, the bullet
Yes.
hole. Yeah, the
Yes.
bullet hole in the window.
Yes.
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You saw that. You saw that bullet hole from inside.
Yes.
And you felt like the bullet was going from in the room to out of the room. Or do you not know?
I don't know. No.
Okay.
No.
Did you, as any part of the investigation, because I know that, because at the time you were a ranger, and the rangers were all over the place, you would agree.
Yes.
And we've heard from, I think you're maybe the sixth ranger that we've heard from. You guys were, over the course of days, you guys were collecting evidence, photographing evidence, doing all those things to process this scene, right?
Correct.
And at the end of all of this, a lot of your findings went into a pretty large, kind of comprehensive report about what happened.
Correct.
And did you read that report?
No, sir.
You never read the report?
No.
Did you read your own report?
Yes.
Because you wrote it?
Yes.
Okay. So as far as, I guess, anything that you know about this case, was there ever any evidence that you heard of anybody on this side of the building firing into 111?
I didn't get that brief. We were just briefed with room 111.
Sure, I understand. I understand. But are you completely, like, other than what you saw in room 111, you don't know anything else, any other facts about this case?
No.
Well, let me ask you about that, because when we talked about 111, you kept saying that was the closet the shooter was in.
Yes.
But the shooter wasn't there when you got there.
No, sir.
Okay. So you would have had to know by some other information other than you looking at 111 that that was the closet that the shooter was in.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking. Do you have any other information other than what you saw in 111 about this case?
We got the brief on room 111, and that's the only brief I got. So that's how I found out that the shooter was in the closet.
I understand.
But
But part of the brief on 111 is the brief would be that we believe that that bullet hole went from in the room and out, rather than out the room and in, because that bullet hole is a part of 111. You agree with that?
Correct.
So you got a brief on 111.
Yes.
And the part of the brief was that we believe that it was a shooter shooting out of that window, not a shooter shooting inside that window.
No, sir.
Okay,
That was not part of the brief.
Okay, nobody told you about that.
No.
Did you, well, let's just assume it. Let's assume it's going from inside the classroom to out, right? Because you would agree if there was no other evidence that anyone ever fired any kind of rounds over here, which there would be if they fired rounds from that little courtyard area into that classroom, there would be, shell casings and things like that, right?
Correct.
So there's no other evidence of that, but we have tons of evidence that there was firing inside that room, obviously. Let's assume that it's from inside the room and out, okay?
Okay.
Now, when you're doing like a ballistics, right? So I say ballistics, but it's really like trajectory rods.
Yes.
You've been trained how to do that.
Yes.
Were you the one that put these trajectory rods in there on this scene?
No.
Or did you just photograph?
I just photographed.
All right. In other scenes, have you been the one to do the rods and somebody else photographs it?
Yes.
Okay. So you're aware of how that works. You're aware that a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times you would need kind of 2 points.
Yes.
Because if you get those 2 points, you could tell that it went from this point to this point, and that gives you a trajectory.
Correct.
Right. Sometimes you don't have 2 points, but the way it fits in, we kind of heard the way it fits in can tell you something about it, maybe.
Yes.
but it's a little less accurate because you never can tell if it fit in like this a little bit or like this a little bit. You know what I mean? You can't tell with the angle unless it's just a completely tight fit. You would agree with that?
Correct.
Because if it's just a loose hole, you don't know which way that the rod went unless you have another one to connect it.
Unless you have another impact. Correct.
Right,
Yes.
another impact. And so that's, maybe I'm not explaining as good, but I think you are. So we have 1 point, we have 2 points. In addition to the rods, have you ever used any kind of laser? To take a laser, put it through a hole like that, and then see if it lines up with any defect on the outside or somewhere else?
Correct.
You've done that before?
Yes.
So you're familiar with it?
Yes.
Okay. Did you do it on this?
No.
So if you didn't do it and you had the 111 brief, do you know if it was done by anybody?
No, I don't.
Right, and what I mean by that is, for instance, you got a bullet hole in this room. You get a defect on this building. Could you, if you had wanted to, or somebody had asked you to, or somebody else there, take that laser system, shine it out of that hole and see if it would have matched up with that?
Yes.
Right. Or see if it didn't.
Correct.
Because you can shine it through and go, no, I mean the laser, because the reason we use lasers is because lasers follow the path like a bullet does.
Correct.
Bullets tend to, unless they hit something, they fly straight and go down eventually when gravity ends up taking over.
Yes.
Right, so a laser could tell you, oh, that could work, that one wouldn't work. That's impossible, that's possible, or that's possible, or that's probable, or that's impossible. It could tell you those kind of things.
Yes.
Okay. And those lasers have pretty good range on them. If you can, they're powerful enough that they can kind of span distances. I mean, not infinite, but they can go pretty far.
Yes.
And I guess what you would see, like if I shined it right now, I mean, most of us all have seen this, but if I shined it right now, there'd be a dot on that wall up there.
Correct.
And what you'd be trying to do with that laser is kind of line it in with the hole like a rod and see like, where's the laser shine?
Yes.
Again, it's not the exact same as having maybe the rods connected, but sometimes the distances are too far. You can't just build rods forever. If the distances are far, the laser's important.
Yes.
Okay. And that could be done with, if there were, I mean, kind of any time that you have a defect and then another defect that's a distance away, the laser can be used in order to see, either rule it out or say, yeah, it's possible that this is the round that caused that defect there.
Correct.
Okay. Now okay, so you talked about, because I wanted to get a little bit more information about the closet. Can we go to 322? And Your Honor, I'd just like to know, please, that I may be going through some of these photographs that I have objected to based upon the fact that they were gruesome and based upon the fact that they were unnecessary. But because the court has allowed it, I just want to put on the record that I'm going through it, but I'm not waiving the objection. So that it doesn't appear that I've waived it.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. And then we'll talk about that. Okay, so the we're looking at, I think it's 322. Your Honor, may I approach the
Yes, sir.
television? Thank you. So we're looking at 322, and this is the door. This is the door to 111, right?
Yes.
So this would be the like the outside door,
Correct.
right? This would be the door that that the students and then eventually the shooter would enter into.
Correct.
So right here on that door
That would be what looks like a door handle with like an exterior lock, or a lock that you can lock and unlock with a key.
Yes.
All right. Did you, when you were processing, did you try to lock that door?
I believe we did.
Okay. And were you able to lock it?
I don't remember. I think since I wasn't messing with the door and I was just taking photos,
If you don't
I don't know.
feel comfortable saying, that's okay. I don't want you to say anything you don't feel confident about. We need to make sure that everything's as right as can be. But I guess, and the reason I'm asking the question is because you would agree, as part of law enforcement, and as long as you've been doing it. So what did you do before you were a ranger?
I was in the Marines.
So you're a Marine, so you're military, thank you for your service, and then you were a ranger.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you do any like military police or anything when you were in the Marines?
I was an embassy guard.
Embassy guard. So you were one of the people that if, in a foreign country, if somebody tried to attack our embassy, you would be the one to protect it.
Yes, sir.
Understood. So I guess you understand then with that experience, embassy guard, law enforcement, that door locks and locks on doors, especially in schools, can significantly hinder anybody trying to get in and cause mass casualty.
Correct.
And so you know that that our schools, almost all of our schools across this country, have developed policies that no matter what, during the day, at night, students are there, nobody's there, that door remains locked.
Correct.
Right, for their protection and their safety.
Yes.
And if the lock is not able to be locked, who's responsible for making sure that that lock is functional and is able to be locked?
I'm assuming whoever the teacher or maintenance,
Sure.
somebody there.
Yeah,
I mean, whoever reports it, it has to be fixed.
Right, you would agree. It starts probably with the teacher saying, my door won't lock, and then it goes work order, maybe goes to the administration, goes to the maintenance people, whatever else. But what you said is, and I agree with you, is that it is of primary importance for safety that lock is functional.
Yes.
Right, because a shooter, like in this case, a shooter, if they are delayed in getting in or cannot get in, that can give other units time to respond.
Yes,
and
sir.
perhaps do something before he's able to get in the room. Right?
Correct.
Okay, so in your law enforcement training and experience, have you ever heard of something called the fatal funnel?
Yes.
Okay, what is a fatal funnel?
When you're involved in a critical incident and you basically lose your peripheral vision and you focus on one thing.
Right, sure. Then that's like and you're talking about kind of getting tunnel vision, but at some point, if you're trying to get into a door or a hallway.
Oh, yes.
Right, then what does that do? For instance, let's say multiple law enforcement, multiple officer response. Can five of me standing here get through that doorway at the same time?
No, sir.
Because it funnels us in one by one.
Correct.
Maybe two by two if you're lucky and the door is wide enough. So a lot of times that can be somebody with a shield and people behind, or just people running in one by one into a door. And that's why law enforcement, they call that a fatal funnel, because if somebody's set up and ready, pop, 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 they could just knock down everybody that comes in as they come in.
Yes.
Okay. Now, can we go to that second? When they gave you, and this second picture will be 362. And I don't know, in your brief on Classroom 111, where you briefed that that blood we see on the ground, that was the blood of the shooter. And that was his positioning after the BORTAC team went in and a tactical team went in and shot and killed him.
No,
You didn't know that that was his blood.
no, I did not.
You didn't know that was his position.
I did not know that was his position.
Like his ending up position
Correct.
after he died.
I did not.
Your Honor, may I approach the television?
Yes.
Okay, but in being in that room, and one of the things, and I'm not saying that you first of all, you took pictures and you did a good job kind of going around the room, and also I know it's hard for you to take those pictures. It's hard for everybody to see. And we appreciate that you did it, and you did your job. This closet here, remember that door that we talked about, the outside door we were talking about, the lock?
Yes.
Right. If we open that door, that's basically a view from opening that door. This closet is directly across.
Yes.
Right. And you know from your briefing that the shooter was in the closet when they got in there.
Yes.
Did you know also that he was in the closet with the door closed?
No.
Did you know that as they breached, it was dark, and the door opened and the shooter?
This is all based on hearsay.
Well, we're going to have everybody testify to it, and I'm not saying anything that they know that they think is untrue.
It's still based on hearsay, Your Honor.
Well, sir, if you know, you can answer. If you don't know of your own personal knowledge, then tell him that, okay?
Yes, sir. Okay. So you said you did not know that. Did you know that the room was dark when they went in?
No.
Okay. Were you aware of a policy in the schools for the safety of the children that the teachers and the children are trained on, that when there is a shooter and they get an alert that there's a shooter on campus, that they are to go in, turn off all the lights, be quiet, and hide?
Yes.
Okay. So if it was dark when they came in, it would not be a surprise, because any teachers and students following that training would have turned all the lights off, been quiet, and hid.
Correct.
Right, okay. So this door, as we talked about in this little closet, is directly across from the door that's entered, that we entered into. Okay. And in your briefing on room 111, were you briefed that this was the shooter's homeroom when he was in 4th grade?
No.
Okay, you didn't know that.
No, sir.
Right. Because if you had known that, or if anybody in law enforcement in that position had known that, and had known who the person was before they get into school or whatever else, or even when they're outside the school, that gives a little bit more information about maybe where he's headed. Not just randomly going into a room, but going into a room that he knows, right?
Correct.
And that's important because if that was his home room,
Objection, Your Honor. He's testifying. He's not asking questions.
It's cross-examination. I'll overrule the objection.
if that was his home room in 4th grade, then he would know, just like any student there would know, that that closet was there, right?
Correct.
If that was your homeroom or mine, and we remembered our homerooms from 4th grade, we would know the positioning if it hadn't changed, and the building hasn't changed since he was in 4th grade. But we would know that that's there. Now, a shooter who is perched there can create a fatal funnel at the entrance of that classroom.
Yes.
Right. Were you aware when you were briefed that when the BORTAC unit, that's the Border Patrol Tactical Unit, went in, what they did was they tried to do like a diversionary entry where they came in and tried to distract at the same time as they were shooting, right? To try to figure out, because you got to figure out where the shooter is in the classroom.
Yes.
And it turned out he was here. They had to draw fire to do that. Were you briefed on that?
No.
Okay. Were you briefed on the fact that Wayne Jackson from the BORTAC unit was shot in the head by the shooter?
No, sir.
Okay. So, and that's because if you're on a stick, as they call it, you got to be on a stick because there's the fatal funnel and you can't all fit at the same time. You go into the classroom and go to the side, and Wayne Jackson is at the very end and he gets hit in the head and it turns him around. You didn't know that?
No, sir.
Okay, so it's safe to say that this shooter is a mass child murderer who wants to be a cop killer. You would agree with that?
It's possible.
Based on those facts?
Yes.
As I gave it. And this shooter is, because a shooter in a mass shooting, you said you've worked several. A shooter in a mass shooting
can kill themselves, right? That's something that has been done and can be done. A shooter can turn the gun on themselves.
Yes.
They can, continue to kind of roam around in the classroom and aimlessly maybe, or, doing stuff or saying stuff, or they can walk around the classroom with their gun. They can do that, right?
Yes.
Okay. They can try to escape if they can figure out or try to find a way to get themselves out, so they can commit the shooting and do this horrible, tragic, terrible thing, and then escape the consequences of it. They can try to do that.
Yes.
By getting out a window, or even maybe trying to come through the door and shoot their way out, or whatever else, right?
Correct.
But in this case, after he had committed his atrocities, he got in a closet and waited for the police to come in so that he could try to kill them, based on all the facts that you have.
Correct.
Okay. So he's a mass child murderer who wants to be a cop killer, and luckily for Officer Jackson, it hit him in the top of the head, spun him around, but didn't kill him. But had it done that, he would have been both a mass child murderer and a cop killer, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we could take that picture. So like you said you were trained on a Leica 3D scanner,
Yes.
and one of those things is with a Leica is that right. Yeah, and we say Leica, and but I think Leica is a brand name.
It's a brand name. Yes.
Right. What's it? Oh, I guess what's it called? What's the generic name for a Leica scanner? If you even know, I've always said Leica, but one of the other rangers said that there was a system that was out there. It was called a total view or something. But you've been trained on Leica.
Yes.
Okay.
3D, it's a 3D scanner.
Well, let's talk about Leica.
Okay.
And 3D scanner. Judge May used to well.
Yes.
So we have a, just so they know, and Gary explained it a little bit, but it's a tripod, usually.
Yes.
The scanner sits on, scans an area, and can tell you, one of the most important things it tells you is distances between things at the scene,
Yes.
right? And sometimes it may not be necessary, like you didn't do a Leica scan in 111.
No.
Right. And you wouldn't do that because the room was connected to 112 through I guess there was a door, kind of an open door, that I suppose could be shut, but those two, you could pass from 111 to 112.
Yes.
Yeah, and somebody else had the brief for 112.
Yes.
Okay. So just in general though, because I know you didn't have the briefer out here, I'm not going to try to take you too far afield. But just in general, in your forensics training, like a Leica scanner for, say, in this field, and in this area, this area, this area, this area, this area, that would tell distances between shell casings, between cars,
Yes.
between car and a building, right? Between entrances, between these cars in the parking lot. All of those things, a Leica pretty quickly would be able to scan it, get 1 million points of data, and then that's how it ends up, is we could end up saying, well, this is 15 feet from this, or this shell casing is 10 feet from this shell casing, and this shell casing is 50 feet from that one, right?
Correct.
All right. So when we talk about this area here, and I want to talk about shell casings and shell casing collection. Have you ever been part of this, Gary, what was that called, the line that they do?
Line search.
Line search. You ever been part of a line search?
Oh, yes.
Right? And you say that like yes, of course, and I've done it a lot.
Yes.
Right. So in this case, the FBI did a line search. They do a line search all the way out here, out here, all here, looking for shell casings, right? And so the way they described it is, you know, everybody's in a line.
Objection to comparing testimony to other witnesses, Your Honor.
That's not, I don't think that's an objection, and he's been proffered as an expert by the state.
I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
So the, you know, they walk in a line, and up, I see something. Somebody, everybody stops, flag, and do that. Is that your experience the same way?
Yes,
Have you ever had to go on your hands and knees?
yes.
And what would the reason for that be?
High grass, weeds.
Sure. You can't necessarily trust if you're standing all the way up, you can't trust your ability to maybe see something, so you get down lower to the ground.
You get down over the ground, I mean, you can use flashlights as well.
Right, sure. And so it's, you would agree that these, it's a thorough search, is what you're trying to do.
I would add another search, I mean, a different technique.
Which
one? In the past, I've used ATF canines that are specifically trained to look for shell casing, burnt gunpowder.
Right,
And yes,
and that's interesting, because you would have you'd have like the K9 that we see at the airport that is, and maybe sometimes at a traffic stop, hopefully not, but sometimes, that is trained to detect drugs, right? Cocaine. And those dogs that are trained to detect cocaine are, like, that's what they do. They detect cocaine. There's other dogs that are trained to detect bombs, and that would be really not, here's a bomb. What they're trained on is they're trained on the things that make up bombs.
Yes.
C4, other things like that would go into the bomb making if somebody were to do that. And then you have other animals like you've talked about, these canines, that are highly trained to detect the scent of gunpowder, which would be on a shell case. Right?
yes.
Okay. So let's assume that, that all the search is done the way that you feel should be done. And there are, if you look at this, I don't know if you got this from your brief, but I'll just tell you because this is the state's map.
Objection to just telling him, Your Honor, that's not a question.
I'm just,
rephrase it, please.
yes, Your Honor. I'm just trying to orient you because this is the state's map, and I don't know if you can see this red line. Can you see this red line here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the state's map, and this is the shooter's path, and this is the culvert where he wrecked, right, at the start of this thing. Can you see that red X?
Yes.
Okay. So, a path that takes him the way that this path takes him, if shots are being fired along this path, they're being shot here, 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 here. All things considered, as an investigator, would you expect to find shell casings? Assuming they weren't picked up, assuming that they weren't moved, but a shooter shooting, as he goes this way, would you expect there to be evidence of shell casings to the right of where the shooter was?
It would depend on how he's holding the weapon.
Sure.
So he can be holding it sideways,
Right.
and the shell casing going straight up in the middle. So
Right.
they can bounce either way.
But I guess to go left, to start ejecting out from the left, he would have to be holding it upside down. If the ejector port is on the right side of the gun, when the gun's right side up.
Yes.
Right. So it would require somebody holding an M4 upside down and shooting to get ejection coming out the left side.
It's possible. I mean, it all depends on how the person was holding the gun. I mean, that's just a big variable.
And I agree with you. It's a big one. But we can say ejector port to the right, shell casing go to the right.
Right.
Right. Unless it's upside down, and then it would eject out to the left.
Right.
Not a common way to
No.
use an M4, right? Maybe here to the side, up, and the power is making it go up. But either way, all of this we're talking about, right or left.
Right.
You'd expect them to be somewhere around here
Yes.
if you were shooting around here. Okay. And shell casings that are here and here would be consistent with this, with, you know, even from their own map, would be consistent with somebody firing along this route and this route.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Judge, I'll pass it.
Mayor, to be exposed to a fatal funnel, do you have to go to the fatal funnel?
Yes,
If you don't approach the fatal funnel, you're not exposed to a fatal funnel.
correct.
I couldn't see because I was sitting right directly behind Mr. Goss. He was talking about the shot coming from 111. Could you point that out, just in general terms, about where that we're talking about? Your fingers there on the east side of the wing. And then he was talking about a building that it could have gone to. That building there?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I understand that.
Bill, you gonna have any?
I'm sorry?
Are you gonna have anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
And when you were the crime scene worker in this case, you picked up casings, correct? And fragments of bullets or bullets,
Yes.
and defects.
Yes.
And what's a defect?
Where a round makes an impact on an area, or a desk, a wall.
That's pretty standard stuff, right? If a bullet hits something, it leaves an impact and you can see it.
Yes.
And have you ever known a bullet to go through a solid object without leaving an impact?
Correct. No.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Just, as far as approaching the fatal funnel, I mean, all law enforcement is taught to be very cautious about a fatal funnel because a dead police officer doesn't help anybody, right?
Correct.
I mean, one police officer after another going in and dying and stacking up in front of that door is not going to save any of those children.
We're taught to get away from the fatal funnel.
Right. I'll pass it.
No further question.
Recall for this witness, either side?
Your Honor, this witness is out of country. I hope we can let it go.
Yes, Your Honor, and I do understand that. I don't want to keep him in, and I know he's got important work to do out of the country. So.
You're excused, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.